Hello everyone, welcome back to Parkitect campaign mode, and in today's episode we're going to tackle Archipelago Adventures, or Archipelago Adventures, however you want to say it, or however it's supposed to be pronounced. Probably should have researched that before. So the introduction here we've got is that a small archipelago is up for sale and will be ideal for a tropical park. Create a tropical paradise for your guests. Not much to say there really, so it's just a small bunch of islands that we're going to build on. The scenario goals are to have an experiences rating of at least 70%, have no loan debts, and have an operating profit of at least £1,500. So these are non-optional goals, so we've got to do these by the end of June year 3. So we basically want to get loads of coasters and thrill rides in, I guess, that make us some money, so that we're sort of making £1,500 a month. But I think because these are optional, it doesn't actually matter if we reach these. That's the way that I'm seeing this. Obviously we're going for the 2 gold coins, so let's get into it and see what we're working with. So here we are. As always, I'm just going to put it on pause to start with, and put the park entrance to free. So let's see what we've got then. It's a series of islands. I quite like this this dead grass texture. I think it works quite well as this tropical vibe we've got. We've not got a great amount of land to start with, but we can, it looks like there is more land for sale here, judging by the buoys around the edge. So we could probably expand out to these parts if we need to. I might try and do a really compact park in the space we've got though, because I don't think the goals, are that difficult to meet. If we're looking at £1,500 profit, really that's probably 2 coasters and a few thrill rides. So let's just take a look at the ride selection we've got then. We've got the carousel, car ride and Ferris wheel, the twister and the wipeout, yeah, pretty standard, and we're pretty limited for coasters in this one. So junior coaster and steel coaster, and a wild mouse as well. And we've got the monorail, can't see us using that. The paddle boats might come in handy, and might be tempting to do a log flume in this one as well, because it's quite a tropical scenario, or a tropical map rather. I think to start with I'm going to put research onto the thrill rides, and yeah, maybe do something like that, 350, just so that we can start making a bit more money and work towards those goals. So we've got till December year 3, I think, to do that. Oh, June year 3, not that long then really, 2.5 years in game time. And the other one's the experiences rating. So as long as we make a decent park with plenty of sort of food, drink options, and rides, and keep our staffing running smoothly, that should be absolutely fine, no problem there. And having no loan debts, so ideally if we can get our sort of main coasters in without taking a loan out, then hopefully we'll be some way towards that. So basically we need to just start making money straight away for this one. I was going to go for a sort of obviously tropical theme, but I think we'll do something like sort of tiki themed. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into the first time lapse. So the theme we're going for this build is a tiki style build, maybe a bit of a Polynesian type thing, maybe a bit tribal, sort of jungly vibes. This was sort of inspired by a build, and I'm really sorry I can't remember who did it, but it was in one of the dioramas earlier in the year. I think maybe one of the mini dioramas, someone did these really cool like tiki statues, and I wanted to try and replicate that in vanilla for this map because I think it would fit really well with this little islands theme. Maybe these are like sort of secluded desert islands or something where a tribe lives, or something like that. So we're just building up a little sort of base camp for the entrance area to these islands, and I start working here on a tiki totem pole. Now this is actually quite hard work to put together, as I'm sure you can imagine, with all the basic shapes that the game gives you. A lot of them have to be placed off grid and takes quite a lot of time and concentration. But obviously when it's time lapsed it looks like I've just thrown them together there in 10 minutes, so yeah, sped it up nicely and quickly for the build there. And we work on some of the path, and I just wanted very neutral sort of dirt ground colours. Obviously this would be concrete as it's a theme park, but it's supposed to mimic just sort of like the dirt land that they build their base camp around, I guess, the local tribe in this sort of village. So we start working on the first building here, and I say building, but it's more a shack. Most of the things we're going to probably build in this are quite open, quite shack-like, I guess. We're doing a trick that I think first saw Astrotron do, where you basically take these bush pieces and use them as a roof piece, and I think it gives a really cool roof effect, and it works perfectly for what we're going for here. I'm not sure if these would sort of be thatched type roofs or something like that, but you can see the sort of vibes that we're going for with this one. And it almost looks like it could be a little sort of pop-up bar or something, like Tiki-themed bar. So we just put the shops in there. Now the haulers are going to have to go to the front of them. That is probably going to affect the guest rating a bit, but there's no other way that I could do it and sort of make this look aesthetically how I wanted it to. So we're just going to have to deal with it looking like that. And then I'll use basic shapes to cover up the customizable shops as well, so it looks nice and sort of authentic. And then we just put some little bar stools around as well to add a bit of detailing there. And I thought these lanterns would work quite nicely for the lighting around this little tiki village as well. So we put those in and just changed some of the colours up to make it look nice and tropical. And yeah, I think that works quite well. So we start now on the first coaster for the park. And I had a vision in my head for how I wanted the coasters to look in this park. Notice I said coasters there, plural, because we're going to put two sort of interlocking coasters into the park, with the idea that they just sort of all theme together nicely once we've finished the concept. So I'm going to try and do a big sort of, I guess, volcano type thing with rockwork and whatnot, which the drop will come down from and then go underground. We're all going to theme it up nicely later on, but firstly we need to start making the money. So I just needed to get a thrilling coaster in, so we use a steel coaster here to start with. And you notice that I worked on the drop before I actually built the rest of the layout. This one doesn't have any inversions, but it does have a very high excitement rating, so we're going to have to probably look at getting some thrill rides in as well. For the time being I colour it in blue. This doesn't stay like that. I do find another colour that I think fits the theme a bit better later on, so that does get changed. Unfortunately with these two coasters that I put in, the track types do tend to clash a bit, and it's hard to find colours that work together. You'll see what I mean when they both go in, but a lot of this will be covered with rock work anyway, so you won't be able to necessarily see it. So we're now putting in the junior coaster as well. It's going to be quite a thrilling junior coaster because it gets up to about like 7 metre or whatever it is height, which is a bit taller than the ones I usually do, and obviously with all the theming around it going in and out of the rock work, it's going to be quite an exciting family coaster, quite a thrilling one. But obviously it's not going to be good enough for the high intense loving guests. So like I said before, we're going to have to get some thrill rides in as well at some point. And possibly another coaster later on in the scenario. I haven't decided yet. So we're just doing a load of helixes and trying to make it intertwine with this layout. This is what I wanted for this park. I wanted 2 different coaster types that have a lot of interaction with each other, and I think that's turned out really well for the way it looks. Just literally coaster track everywhere, and then it's just going to be about how we theme it to make it look good. But I'm hoping that these 2 coasters, especially the steel coaster, bring us in plenty of money to work towards those park goals. So you can see then to start with here, I tried it with a nice yellow colour, and I do think this looks good, but I think it all looks a bit confusing, almost like the track types, like I say, clash together a bit too much. So we do end up changing that a bit later on, which you will see. And then I realised that the steel coaster wasn't actually making it round the layout, so I had to do a bit of adjustment there at the top. But again, a lot of that will be covered up by rock work. It's not the most realistic coaster, neither of these are by any means, but they're basically serving a purpose, and once we've done theming them, I think they'll look pretty good in the park. I don't always sort of build realistic coasters in these playthroughs, I guess. Like this sort of landscape is very unlikely that you'd see a theme park built on a load of tiny islands like this anyway, so again, this is a fancy type map. And then at this point I start getting in some flat rides, so we have the Wipeout over there and the Ferris wheel, which I took absolutely ages trying to find colours for. I tried about 10 different sort of colour patterns, tried every colour pattern I could imagine really, until I found one that fitted nicely. And really it's just now about trying to get the guest flow in, get some ride tickets sold and start earning some cash. So we also put the Twister ride in, and this one I do start theming up immediately. To start with, I tried to give it a cover using that same roof design, the sort of thatched roofing that we use for the stools in the middle, but I just didn't feel it really fitted that well with this ride. So that's the that's another attempt I had at theming it, which I also wasn't happy with. So I guess it is sort of 3rd time lucky for this one. I didn't keep all the footage in because I felt that it would just make the video too long, so we only keep in the bits really that we do. And in the end I just decided to keep it simple and have a small path cover here, using the thatch style roofing, and then we add something to the middle of the Twister ride. We actually theme up the ride itself quite nicely, and I'm really happy that I decided not to just leave it how it was and give this another go, because it looked a lot better by the time we'd actually finished with it. So here you can see the colour changes for the rides. So we are making the steel coaster this sort of Indiana Jones colours, just sort of giving it that adventure vibe, I guess. Would be the sort of colour there, sort of beigey track colour, which I think looks really good. And then I coloured the junior coaster a sort of toned down green, I guess, which it works okay for now. But yeah, anyway, going back to this Twister ride, so in the end I added in some I wanted to do another tiki totem pole type thing, or a tiki statue rather, on top of or in the middle of the Twister, looking like this tiki god is controlling the ride or whatever, spinning you around. But I wanted to do it slightly differently, so I looked at a reference image, and there's quite a lot of these stone statues you can get. Sometimes you see them in people's houses where they've just got it as a statue, or in, I don't know, in a bar or whatever, and I think it looks pretty cool. So that's what I worked on this for this one, and I copied it round so you can see the tiki head from both sides of the statue as well. that's got two heads, and then we just colour the ride in to match the sort of colour of the statue, and do some rock work and foliage, and I think it actually looks really nice. It's a lot more simple, but it does genuinely look themed. And if you've seen my videos before, you know I'm just not good, I've mentioned it before, I'm not good at theming flat rides at all. So that concludes it for this section of the time lapse. Let's take a look at how the park is doing. Right, so the park seems to be doing okay so far. It looks like the shops aren't stocked up, so the hauler is just working on that now. The problem is I can't click on the shops without removing the scenery, because they're that covered up. So this one, what does it need? Waiting for available workers, so it hasn't started there. Doing that, so I think I might just put another hauler in. Just so we've got someone there. If you didn't notice in the time lapse, or I can't remember, maybe I did it after I stopped recording, we've just put a staff room in there as well. We will need to cover that up at some point as well, and this bathroom here, just so that the guests and the staff have got everything they need in the park, so that the park rating doesn't shoot down really low. At the moment, the happiness isn't great. Hunger and thirst actually isn't too bad. I guess it's because the park hasn't been open that long, so they haven't had time to get hungry or thirsty. By the time that becomes an issue, these should be fully stocked up, so that's fine. Yeah, the experiences is low still, probably because we haven't got any really intense rides, or a lot of the guests yet haven't made it to the big rides. I really like this helix section here with the coaster flying over the sort of entrance plaza. Definitely the sort of thing that sort of gets you excited to when you first get into a park to go and ride the coasters. And yeah, I think the interaction is going to be really nice with these two coasters once we work out all the theming around them as well. As you can see at the moment, we've just shoved some paths and queues down just to get the guests onto the rides and start earning a bit of money. At the moment we're earning £60, so we need 1,500, so we've got a little way to go at this point, and we've just got to get that experiences up to 70. Now obviously we need no loan debts, and this is sort of before the end of June year 3, so yeah, it's going to be difficult. If we need to build another coaster, we're going to need to get a loan out, but if we're just doing flat rides, we should be alright. So it just really depends how everything works out. See, the experiences is dropping rapidly there, so the guests aren't sort of over the moon with the park, so that's something that we're going to have to work on. And let's just see what we've got researching. So building the skyfall, I did change it to decorations because I feel that we really need the adventure theming for this one, to take the theming sort of where we want it to be. We've got the jumper, I've no idea where we could put that, to be honest. That's maybe over here or something. That's something we'd have to look at some point, but I think I'll wait for this skyfall to get researched and build that, because hopefully that's a high intensity ride, which is all that we're sort of lacking in the park really. I think we've got everything else to cater for the needs. We've got Ferris wheel. People are not paying that much for it. Let's put it down to £2 then. Maybe I'm overcharging a little bit there. It just seems like the guests want more intense rides, which is strange because this is sort of more of a laid back map, so you wouldn't, expect them to to want anything too thrilling here. The other thing I think we need to do is place some benches down, because there's a lot of tired looking guests in this park as well. So I'm going to put it on pause and get back into the time lapse and start building some more stuff before that happiness rating really shoots down too fast. So I'll see you back over in the time lapse. So the first thing that we do then is get some benches in, as mentioned before, just so the guests have somewhere to sit. We recolour them to theme them nicely with the theme that we're going for here. Although, as you can sort of clearly see now, I've themed the front part of the park, but anywhere behind it we're just using generic paths and stuff. This is just so that we can meet the goals, really. Struggling a bit with money here, but I didn't want to take a loan out because that was one of the goals, to not have any loan debt. So I just waited till we had enough money to build this skyfall, and I built it super tall, which looks rather unrealistic. I don't really like the way it looks, but we're just building it like that to meet the goals. And we'll probably remove it at the end of the once the goals have been met. We'll remove it and tidy up that area of the park a bit. So I also add in a jumper ride. Really this is just about making money, getting as many guests in the park as possible, because the only problem that we do have with meeting these goals is it tends to rain quite a lot in this sort of tropical themed land, so it makes it a little bit harder to meet the goals of the riding or the operating profit of 1,500 a month, because it dips below every time that it rains and guests can't go on a lot of the rides, because we don't really have anything indoors for them here either. So it does take quite a big loss when people obviously don't want to go on things when it's raining. So here then we're just doing a little bit of detailing around the entrance area, just sort of waiting for the money to build up a bit and to get a bit nearer towards those goals. Obviously we want the experiences rating to be high as well, so there needs to be plenty of rides and attractions to suit every different type of guest in the park, I guess. So that's something that we're working towards there as well. And just add some sort of canopy, some covers there, going through to this back section of the park where all the rides are, just to theme it in nicely, and put a bath. Well, I think we already had that in, but just to hide away that bathroom, so the decoration rating there doesn't go down too much. So yeah, really at this point I'm just doing little odd bits of detailing. No major theming gets done. It's mainly about waiting for the goals. I wanted to put some custom crates in here, so I spent absolutely ages sort of wasting my time working on this, trying to get in what I thought would be sort of like a crate like you see in a Crash Bandicoot game or something like that. But it's really hard to do anything like that without construction anarchy. So in the end we just sort of end up with some half-assed crates. They look fine, I suppose, do the job. Later on I think we researched the western theming, so we can just use the standard crates there, which work fine for this. I also just tried this little trick of using a canopy there as a tent. It looked a little bit daft, so I just used these as hidden ones under the trees, like just to sort of give the illusion that there's a little campsite under there or something like that. And really, to be honest, I'm spending way too much time doing detailing of this tiny area of the park, when there's absolutely loads more to do on the for the rest of the park. But I do like this, the way these sort of rock formations and bushes turn out looking with the different sort of lime green coloured planting. I think that looks really nice and really tropical. And then we put a few palm trees on the beach as well to finish it off. Then really here I'm just doing what I can to meet those goals. You can see they have to be held at 3 weeks to complete the goals. So I really struggled at this. We kept sort of going back and starting again. Obviously you can see I've cut out parts of the footage there. But every time it rained, or every time that the experiences dipped below 70, it went back to the start and you have to hold it again for a month. So I kept adding more rides in, thinking that it would help, doing everything I can to increase the experiences rating, putting more staff in the park as well. But then finally we do meet the end goals after probably about 10 attempts. But it's fine. In this one, they do give you plenty of time, because I think it's up till sort of June year 3 or something like that. So as far as I know, we do it a lot earlier than that. And there we go. So now we'll jump into the live section. Okay, so I noticed that there was an extra goal that we hadn't completed, which was have at least 500 guests in your park. But because this was an optional goal, I needed to complete it in order to get the gold coin, but it didn't have to be before the end of June year 3. So, and I'm not proud of this, but what I did was I made another save file and just did a part where there was spammy rides everywhere, so I'll put a image up, a screenshot up of that on screen just so you can see what I've done. And then I just spanned the part with rides and advertisements until that goal was met. We've got 500 guests in, meaning that we've actually completed all the goals now. We get the second gold coin for completing this campaign map 100%. So yeah, sometimes you just have to do these things, because I didn't want to build all the extra rides that were required for meeting that goal. And now we're just going to make the park look nice however we want, because we've completed those goals. So the first thing I'm going to do is remove this horrible ride here. I'm just not a fan of how that looks at all. Yeah, everything else I think is going to stay. Not sure about the layout of these rides, although I can't really see where else we put them, so maybe if we just theme them up nicely, we can get them looking good there. Also got this little cash machine in the middle. Oh, sorry, that was my phone giving me a reminder. We've got this cash machine in the middle here, so if we place some pathing around it, that probably makes the flow a bit better, but we need to find some sort of way of covering that up as well, I think. I've just placed that in to meet the goals properly so that guests had enough money. We can now lower the prices a bit as well and stop ripping people off, I guess, for these coasters. That was £6, that one at 10. Yeah, because we're making plenty of money, so we don't need to worry too much about things like that now. £3, that's £2, that's fine. So yeah, I think the first thing I'm going to do is try and build a big sort of volcano around this coaster here, and take it from there really, and then just theme up the rest of the park. We've not got a huge area to work with. The only thing that I'm a bit concerned about is actually what I'm going to do for station covers and various buildings, because I don't want everything to just copy this. We obviously want the sort of, we want the tropical tiki vibes, but we want to try and make it interesting and do something different with it. So I think that's going to be a real challenge now, getting into theming this one. So let me just check the research as well. So we're researching all the deco stuff at the moment. Hopefully Adventure gets done, because that would be really helpful actually. But I will see you over in the third and final time lapse. Firstly, I must apologise if I'm repeating myself at all throughout this commentary. It's probably been about 2 months or a month and a half since I last recorded any commentary for this playthrough. Obviously I've been playing, it's completed now at time of recording, but I can't remember what I said before in the commentary, and I didn't want to sit there and listen back through to it all, because I bore myself. But immediately what you can see we're working on first is the volcano. This really makes the whole sort of theme come to life, and connects the park up together. Before this went in, I was really struggling with this one, didn't know whether to just scrap it and start again, but I think the volcano really brings it all together. Obviously it was a lot of work, so even though I passed all the goals and we were making decent money and everything like that, I did have points where I had to stop and wait for the money to build up again, because these big rocks are expensive, just like in real life. If a Disney park or something like that was to build something to this scale, it would probably cost them, I don't know, upwards of 40 million or something like that. I can't remember the exact figures, but I know that Expedition Everest at one point was the most expensive coaster in the world, and obviously they'd built a huge mountain facade around it, and that was the majority of the reason for the cost of that coaster, I guess. So yeah, it's exactly the same in Parkitect. Obviously, we sort of run out of money from building rocks, so have to let it build back up again. By this point, though, the park is making fairly good money. I think I changed things about a bit at one point. I don't know if I did that off camera, but I put in a sort of thrill ride, the Turbulon or whatever it's called, and move things about a bit. Just to try and get a bit more money. Yeah, there we can see the Turbulon going in. And yeah, once I left it playing for a bit, we started to make a bit more money because I took some of the sort of spammy rides out that I'd built before just to meet the park goals that I didn't really feel fitted that well into the park. So yeah, that's that. And at this point you can see that we're building a log flume. Although I did think the park was already quite chaotic, I thought that a water ride might break up the colours a bit, and for this sort of theme and this tropical environment, I think a water ride works really well. So building a big log flume coming out of the volcano, and at this point I start to get real sort of Volcano Bay, Universal's Volcano Bay vibes from this build. But it was really difficult to actually find the space to make the layout work and not look completely ridiculous. So I'm moving around a lot of paths, and I think I even adjusted the junior coaster. Yeah, you can see there, I'm just taking the track out, just so that we could finish off the layout for this one. And making it sort of meander in and out of all the other rides. It's maybe not the most realistic, but probably most of the rides in this park aren't realistic. It's more of a sort of fantasy vibe. But I think it works out pretty well. And it gives another ride to be bringing some money in so we can complete this theming without worrying too much as well. And like I say, we just get that variation with the water, breaking up some of the coaster track a bit. The only problem is, and the only thing that I'm sort of still not 100% happy with about this park, is the path work. The layout of it, to be honest, is pretty terrible. Once we get the rides and the volcano in, I just place pathing wherever I can fit it in, just so the guests can get to the rides. Kind of in an RCT1 style, where you just want to meet the goals, so you just put paths wherever, so that guests can get to the rides. But yeah, you can also see the volcano is pretty much built. Obviously, it's pretty much entirely built from rocks, using a couple of different shades of grey there to give it a little bit of variation and break it up a bit, because it is very, very samey. I do add some adventure skulls into the volcano as well, again just to break up that monotony of the exact same rock work everywhere. Obviously, the higher we go up, the smaller the rocks become, which makes it, gives it that sort of false perspective vibe, although it is really as big as it looks, if that makes any sense. Put some lava into the top then, lots of smoke effects everywhere, and then any other bits inside I'm just hiding with plain black pathing and walls, not pathing, roof tiles and walls, just to hide anything inside, so you can just see the coasters going in and they're covered by smoke. And I think that gives the best effect and makes it easy enough for what we're trying to do. So now we start working on the coaster station, and I really didn't know what to do for this one. I wanted some variation. I didn't want to just put sort of straw huts everywhere, if that makes sense. I didn't want to just do that same roof trick everywhere, because it is a bit sort of copying other people, so I wanted to try and do something a bit varied, and all we come up with really here was a roof style that I think kind of fits the Tiki theme. Maybe it's a little bit of an Asian style theme as well. That's the problem I have with a couple of the buildings that I make in this campaign, just trying to get the theme that I'm looking for. It also turns into a bit of an adventure theme, but I think as this is a coaster that goes through a volcano, I think the adventure theme works quite well, the way it's done. And my favourite bit of this build actually is the little tiki sign that we put on the front, with the name of the coaster, which initially I called Volcano, and then I decided that's not gonna cut it. That's too generic. So I came up with a more tiki sort of Hawaiian, Waikiki maybe inspired name, using some, I believe to be Hawaiian words, but I'm not sure. Just something that I put together with a quick Google, and that's what we end up calling it. I also put another tiki statue in over here to give it that tiki vibe, but with completely different colours for this one. Had to use lots of reference images for these builds just to get some inspiration, because it's very difficult because there's not actually that many different building styles that you can do for this sort of theme. So it was quite difficult to find stuff that worked and looked interesting in Parkitect to sort of translate that theme over to the vanilla game. As you can see, I've also put in loads of rocks underneath the station platform. I think those are the adventure rocks or the adventure poles or whatever. I think that works really well for the theme, and makes the building look a lot more interesting. So yeah, I'm happy with how that came together. Here you can see then the next tiki statue. These are pretty difficult to make in vanilla, to be honest. The eyes do pop out a bit. They look a little bit more menacing maybe than they should, but it's, you know, it's just what we could do with the pieces that we had and the limitations, obviously, with the heights differences and stuff like that. But yeah, overall I think this adds a nice bit of variation with the colours we've gone through here. I really like the teals and the sort of turquoises. I think they work nicely with that style of theming, just varying it up a bit, because I don't want parks that are the same sort of everywhere throughout the park. I want to follow themes but make it a bit varied, perhaps. And as we move on in the campaigns, hopefully there'll be opportunities to do stuff with different themes entirely. So, you know, where we build maybe if a theme park that's a bit more realistic with 2 or 3 different themes. But for the smaller ones like this, that doesn't really work. I tend to just stick to the one theme. I think that works quite well. So now we're just working on the sort of bridges for the pathing that goes into the coaster. Obviously, because of the limited room, it was quite difficult. I had to just run the path over the coaster station and through the actual station itself, but I think it works out fine. Now you can see me putting in the volcano sign and a little sort of, I don't know what you'd call that, just a little prop on top of it to show what it is, with a flame effect there as well. We also use the flame effect sort of lighting that you can see going in on the side of this building. And I think that looks quite cool as well and gives it more of an adventure theme. And then finally just putting in the the basic shapes to hide the orange platform, which doesn't really match the theme. So now I go to work on it's not really a main street, is it, but the central plaza, for the entrance plaza, whatever you want to call it. And I decided we've got the shops and stalls, the food shops and stuff down there, so I'm just going to make this a toilet block. But I felt like we needed something a bit more built up and something to establish a bit what this sort of tiki theme would be. Like I say, rather than just having shacks with the planting, roofing, thatch stuff everywhere, wanted to give it my own twist. So we're just using this roofing. I think that's the western roof. I'm not sure what you'd call that. But like many of the sort of pieces in Parkitect, you can dictate your own theme really with with the pieces, so I've decided that this works okay for Tiki theme, and then we just use the little plant piece there, or the little bush piece rather, to cover up the Ferris wheel entrance thingy, whatever you call that. Not very good with my technical words today at all. But yeah, here we're just fiddling about a bit with the paths. I got rid of the sort of canopy there because I felt it was just too restrictive, and I put a new one in just so that there's something protecting the guests on the path from the coaster track that's flying above the path. And I think that works out fine. It's a bit more discreet. Again, I've changed the Ferris wheel colours here. I think I've changed them about 5 times. I've probably spent half this campaign changing them colours, and in the end I just change it to the same as the Twister ride that we've got at the front, because I feel that works nicely. So moving on to the log flume station then, inspired a lot by the Iron Quasi station, but I couldn't think out how to do that shape in vanilla, so in the end I just used the hanger pieces, actually the hanger roof pieces, because they had the exact shape that I was after for this building, and then I just put a few plants in just to give the effect that it's a thatch roof, rather than making the entire roof out of them, and I think that works out fine. We also add some nice little hanging flower plant things underneath the station to break up the colour a bit and make it look more interesting, which I say all the time. I know I say that about everything I build. I just want to make it look more interesting. But that's it really, just detailing and decoration. Just to make the buildings a little less boring really, and samey. And then I just copy it across as well to that platform there on the path for the queue lines. So again, the guests are more secured from the coaster flying over the path there, for loose articles flying out or anything like that. And yeah, that's pretty much that station complete. Very, very simple building. Just add a few more details and do a bit of lighting as well. And we add a sign here, and we call this one Mayari Falls. I really like that name. It's a simple name, but it works nicely for the theme. Give it just a little sign here, and then use some basic shapes to make some small waves underneath as well. And this is the point where I changed the name of the steel coaster from Volcano. I can't remember what I called it there. I can't really see as the time lapse is flying past, but we'll see at the end when we have a look in and you know, do a proper tour of the park and stuff like that. So yeah, there again, just doing a little bit of lighting as well, and having a look at all that sort of thing. And then it's just a case of sort of polishing off some of these areas a bit. So obviously there's not an awful lot of room, but this sort of plaza area to the right of the log flume station needed a little bit of work doing on it, just to separate the rides from the path, and yeah, make sure that the guests don't get to the ride areas or anything like that. Maybe getting a bit ahead of myself here actually, because we're still doing lighting. It's one of those playthroughs where I jump from around different areas of the park and just work on things for a little while and then go back to other things, and I think sometimes that works out quite nicely for a playthrough. So the next thing that I do then is work on a nice sort of station, I guess, for the jumper ride. And I just wanted a really simple building, but something a little bit more modern. So maybe it was just to infer that this was placed in the park a little bit later, when they had more modern sort of Hawaiian building styles, I suppose. So we're using lots of pillars to indicate that it's made of sort of wooden slats, I guess, or whatever. And then a small glass window at the front, so just discovered glass on this island. Yeah, it's difficult, like I say, difficult to know sometimes what to do to make themes a bit different around your park, or make make buildings a bit different and keep everything varied. So really I'm just trying different stuff out here, and I think it works reasonably well. I'm fairly happy with how that looks. In the end, just adding a little bit of planting around the building to blend it in a bit. And yeah, then I think we move on. We're doing a bit more lighting there. I'm really just winging it now because I can't remember what I did in what order. It's all a bit chaotic, this one. It's one of those builds that I just had to keep going back to because I kept losing inspiration and motivation for this one, to be honest. And I've been very busy as well, so I've not had the time to constantly play through it. Hopefully that will improve with the next build and we can just get on with things, but for now anyway it's fine. Just decorating the jumper ride here, then putting some rock work at the back and some fencing as well. As always, I really struggle to decorate these flat rides in the game. I just don't know what to do with them, especially with vanilla, to make them look more interesting and to not repeat the same things over and over again. But sometimes you just need to give it a fence and a bit of a station, and that's all you can do really. Not get carried away, I guess. But yeah, that's pretty much that area of the park complete as far as I know. I think I'll just cover up the log flume entrance where it goes underground there, just to get rid of that hideous tunnel that's the in-game piece there. And we move on to the final coaster stations as for the junior coaster, obviously. And again, this is where I feel I went borderline Asian theming with it. With the roof colour and stuff, and I sort of use what I'd like to think of almost a bamboo colour sort of wooden structure here, but this was from a reference image of a building, a fairly modern looking building in Hawaii, but that was very inspired by sort of traditional Hawaiian architecture, I guess. I don't really know, to be honest, but I think it works quite well for this station. It's very, very simple, just two different levels to it. One to add variation, and two so that the path can go through again, because it's another path that has to go over the station platform. And then we give it a sign and a name. Can't remember for the life of me what I called this one. Oh, it's the hula coaster. So yeah, just a very simple sort of name for a junior coaster there, and we just add a couple of these funky little flowers I've never really used before, but just to give it the theme, you know, like them lei type things that you see in films where people get them put around their neck when they land in Hawaii and stuff like that, and using the brightly coloured flowers as well to give that nice tropical theme. That nice tiki Hawaiian theme. Maybe I'm mixing all the themes up here, but I don't know. I think it looks good anyway. That's the main thing. We also add the station platform as always, and some lighting here with the lanterns again, because they seem to work quite well for this theme. And then I go on to work on the tourbillon station platform, and again just keep it very simple here because I wasn't entirely sure exactly what to do, so we just use some pillars and some borders. And it's also worth mentioning actually that I blueprinted some of the tiki statues and added them around the park as well, because I think the theme kind of got lost almost and carried away into different styles, so I thought we'll put some more tiki statues around the park just to help blend it in and keep the sort of repetition of that theme idea everywhere in the park. So yeah, you can see one there just next to the wipeout. And that's pretty much it for the build, so I will see you all over in the final tour. So here we are in the completed Archipelago Adventures park, and despite this being quite a challenge and some of the struggles that I faced doing it, I think it turned out fairly well, to be honest. As you can see, we've got this massive volcano that's the centrepiece of the park, giving out those Volcano Bay vibes, and the various tiki-themed buildings around the park, and the log flume sort of meandering around the park, bringing it all together with the different coaster track. Obviously the back bit probably could have done with more work, but we're not too worried about that, because the guests aren't going to see much of that from ground level. So let's take a bit of a closer look at what we've got then. This is where we started, with the entrance plaza. So you come off the boat here, you come into the park, you immediately face these two big tiki totem poles, which I think turned out really nice, and the tiki twister ride on the right here, which is pretty cool. And then you've got the Ferris wheel alongside this sort of entrance building here, and then straight away you see the steel coaster flying over the path as you come in, doing these big swooping helixes. And then we come through to the log flume. I don't think we're going to ride on the log flume, because it's just going to take too long and I can't really be bothered to be honest. But yeah, that's probably my favourite station, because it's probably the station that matches the theme the best in this park, so I'm happy with how that turned out. Going along then this way, we've got another tiki totem pole in front of the big drop there for the steel coaster, and we've got a couple of flat rides before we come to our junior coaster, the hula coaster. So let's take a ride on that one. These are the stats: high excitement, low intensity, and nausea, and again amazing decoration, which I always like to see. See if we can get one that's just about to go. Obviously it's going to be quite difficult to actually see the coaster go round, because a lot of it's going to be inside this volcano. So if we just skip to the top of the lift hill, there we go, we come down this first helix, which then goes back into the volcano and does some turns in there before coming back out, and then it's just a series of helixes in and out of the volcano, which I think looks really cool, and I think this would be a really popular family coaster if this were a real park, although the attendance seems pretty low for this one, so none of the rides seem to be running at full capacity, except for the Tourbillon down there, which is always a popular ride. If I was doing this again, I probably should have built more high intensity rides, because that seems to be what people want in this park. So yeah, then we pass back past the log flume and Maori Falls, and we've got another sort of open plaza area here for the guests to walk around and relax. We have the two flat rides here and the splash zone for the log flume, and because of the lack of space here, even if you're just walking around the park or just grabbing, a bite to eat, you're going to get soaked by this log flume. Then there's no two ways about it, but it's hot in this park, or we'd imagine that it's hot, although it does tend to rain quite a lot, but we'd imagine it's a hot climate, so I'm sure getting soaked on that shouldn't be too much of a problem. So the coaster actually got called Kalawi in the end. Is that right? Kilau or something like that. Terrible pronunciation there. But these are the results. So we have an extreme excitement, a medium intensity, very low nausea, and an amazing decoration again. And what we'll do, we'll go to this coaster. I can see that the operations on this aren't great already. The minimum and maximum wait times are set to how I want, but they're probably not set right. But not to worry. So the coaster goes out of the station, curves around into a very slight drop under the path, and then up the lift hill into the volcano.
which, as you can see now, has got all these cool skulls on it as well. I really love how they turned out, how they look on the volcano there. So we go into a turnaround section and then into a sort of pre-drop as we go into the volcano, and then into the main big drop there, which drops down underground and then straight into the big helixes here and over to the mid-course brake run. Now this is actually a really short layout, not much happens after the mid-course, just a big swooping helix around the wipeout and then back into the volcano before we find our way to another helix. Actually, I forgot about that bit, and then just into the brake run. So yeah, pretty happy with all the coasters and the rides in this park and how the park turned out. Like I say, did find this one a bit of a struggle, to be honest. I think it's quite a difficult theme to pull off, especially with the sort of money and time limitations and everything that campaign mode gives you. But every time I do one of these, I'm sort of learning how to approach the next campaign in order to make things a bit easier for myself. So let's get back into the map and see what we've got next. So there you can see we get the extra gold coin because I've actually closed the scenario at the right time this time, but we still don't get to see this land because I made the other goals earlier. But that's fine, that's Archipelago Adventures completed, so we move on to either Adventure Island, which I seem to remember being quite a difficult one. The goals don't look that hard. Or we've got Batavia Cay for the next episode, so I will see you all in the next one. Thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.